Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Racist Karen Calls the Cops on My Cousin, So I Get Her Business Closed Down. Background: my cousin, 23 female, recently opened up her own salon. From a young age, she taught herself how to thread, wax eyebrows and developed an interest in makeup and hair. Everyone in our extended family would go to her before events and on a monthly basis for their threading, waxing, hair and makeup needs. In 2020, she had a full-time job, non-salon related, but decided to renovate the basement of her home to create a small salon space. She now spends her free time taking clients in her at-home salon and there's nothing but great reviews. Her sister helped with the renovations and now helps her with marketing the business, social media, community pages, and I help with the finances, budgeting, price setting. We all support her and are really proud of her. The salon is our baby. We're now in the middle of a pandemic and this greatly affected her salon business. As a result, she implemented safety measures and our small team made sure to keep up with COVID regulations in our city. This included having one customer inside at a time, doing temperature checks, making masks, face shields and gloves mandatory, wiping down the salon after each client, etc. Also, when our city was in lockdown, the salon was closed as it is not an essential service. Our city is once again in lockdown since the end of December to the end of January. The salon has been closed since the lockdown began. The salon's social media pages had been updated to let the current clientele know that the salon is closed. Now comes the Karen. Karen sees a community post from October detailing a discount that the salon was having on a certain package we offer. She comments on the post saying that she can't believe the salon is open in the middle of a lockdown when her salon has to be closed. This is important for later. Karen fails to notice that this post was made in October, when salons were allowed to operate as long as they followed safety regulations. Karen doesn't bother checking more recent posts indicating that the salon was closed. My cousin doesn't see her reply at this time. The next day, 2 police officers show up at my cousin's door while she's at a doctor's appointment. The officers ask for my cousin and my aunt lets them know that she's not home right now. My aunt does not speak English very well and lets the officers know that she would call my cousin and ask her to come home. Maybe the officers didn't believe her but they insisted on coming inside the home. My aunt had already called my cousin as she was worried. My cousin asked what it was about, but my aunt didn't know. My cousin then asked if they had a warrant for anything. When she found out they didn't, she told her mum not to let them come inside and that she would be there in about 20 minutes. My cousin began driving home when my aunt called her to let her know that they simply left. Hearing this, my cousin was less worried and decided to go grocery shopping as planned before heading home. Turns out, the officers came back half an hour later and once again demanded to see my cousin. My aunt called my cousin again and asked her to come home, but in the 20 minutes she took to come home, the officers were gone. They had left a card and asked her to call back. My cousin managed to get a hold of the officers and was told that someone had reported her business. They claimed that she was operating during the lockdown and they had proof. My cousin knew this wasn't true as the salon had been closed for quite a while. By now, my cousin had seen the comment from earlier and mentioned that she knew exactly what their so-called proof was, but the post in question was from October. My cousin was very upset as this post was not even close to being actual evidence of her operating now, in January. She was also very upset that they insisted on coming inside the house with no cause or warrant when they could clearly see that my aunt does not understand the language very well. At the end of the conversation, the police officer apologized to my cousin and we thought it was the end of it. You must be wondering how we know that Karen was the one who called the cops. Well, she told us. The next day, my cousin received a message she realized was from the woman who commented on the post. Karen decided to pretend like she's a customer. Karen, can I book an appointment? My cousin, hey love, we are currently closed due to the lockdown. Once the lockdown is over, we will be more than happy to book you in. Karen, oh, my girlfriend was there yesterday, my apologies. My cousin, you must have gotten the date wrong. The salon is not taking clients until the lockdown is over. Thank you. Karen, nope, but I didn't get the date wrong. I also know the police came due to you being open. Take care, my cousin, I'm not going to sit here and entertain your boring life. Maybe for a change you can find another hobby rather than spreading lies and wasting people's time, including the police's time. Or even better, find an actual job. Have a good night. Karen, I own my own spa that's closed, as should yours be. My mum is the one who called the cops. You are not entertaining me at all. Go back to your own country instead of ducking with ours. My cousin decided to block her at this point. My cousin was happy this was all over. Her sister and I were still outraged at the racist comment and how someone could make up lies about a small business that led to the cops terrifying my aunt. When my cousin told me about Karen, the fact that she had her own spa really stood out. I did some digging. Revenge, turns out Karen runs her own spa out of her house. Doing some more snooping, I found reviews from her clients on her business page that were posted on days that the city was under lockdown. The reviews could be from clients who received services before the lockdown and only now had a chance to write a review. To be sure, I found Karen's Instagram page. I decided to use her own trick against her. I created a new account with a generic name and followed her page so she couldn't see that I was related to my cousin. I then messaged her to ask about the prices for her services. Me, hey, I love your pics. I was wondering how much you charge. Karen, hey girl, thank you so much. What service are you after? Me, I'm really interested in the BB Glow facial. Karen, that's awesome. My biggest seller for sure. Normally it's $125, but it's on BOGO, so you pay for one session and get two. Me, that's such a great deal compared to others. When is your next available date? Karen, where are you located? I can't have people come to me in lockdown, but I travel to my clients. Karen was not operating from her home location due to lockdown restrictions but was traveling to her clients' homes, which is still against regulations. I then made up a lie about my home not having adequate space and asked for her address so we could meet up at my friend's place somewhere between her and my location. She foolishly told me her address. During this time, I also tried joining other community groups that she was a part of. In one particular group, people in the community were promoting their small businesses. She had recently made a post about discounts on her services for the month of January. I immediately went online and submitted a report about her business still operating, including screenshots, her address, full name, etc. A few days passed by and I had forgotten to check up on it as I was busy with life again. I saw the incident report number on a sticky note I had on my desk and decided to check in. Apparently, this was not Karen's first offense. Karen had already been fined $750 for having a client in her home during the first lockdown in my city. After being fined, she decided to change her business model and go to the client's home instead. Now, she was fined $10,000. I was still following her on Instagram, so I decided to check it out. She had gone on a rant about how she was going to do very bad things to the person who reported her. She also mentioned that she was no longer allowed to run her business. I'm not sure what type of ban the regional police put on her, but I immediately deleted the account and exited the groups I had joined earlier. At the end of the day, Karen got what she deserved and I fulfilled my dream of pretending to be Sherlock Holmes. The next one is titled, "Let Your Tenant Use Your Home for Illegal Activity?" My dad has an idea. This was many years ago, when I was around 23 years ago, so it's more about my father instead. My house was on a lower class side of town, mostly of more poor folks and retirees who had lived there before it went downhill. Our backyard butted right up against an alleyway that was a constant source of problems. As an example, we had a 15-foot diameter trampoline stolen from our backyard. This thing had been rusted together, so I can only figure they popped it up on its side and rolled it away like a big tire. Anyways, back to the story. The house across the alley from us was a duplex kind of a thing, and the landlord would rent to literally anyone. One guy he rented to was a fairly prolific drug dealer who ran his gig literally out of his kitchen window. Cars would pull up through the alley, into the yard, parking, hands would move back and forth, then the car would drive away. This guy legit had a drug drive-through. It didn't take long for my parents to find all kinds of undesirable trash migrating its way into our yard: needles, burned spoons, broken pipes, condoms, and who knows what else. My parents were worried about my dumb 5-year-old butt getting into something or stabbing myself with something that could decidedly harm me. My mother was a nurse before being disabled in a severe car accident and had been infected with hepatitis C while working at the hospital due to a needle that had been missed, so she was super worried about this for me as well as a handful of other kids in the neighborhood. Conversations with the landlord, including gathering evidence, made no difference. He didn't live there, why did he care? Eventually, my parents tried to call the cops. The local PD was not helpful. They said they couldn't investigate or even send out a car on someone's word. This wasn't our first problem with the local cops either. After having our cars and other things are broken into or stolen, they told my parents to write down license plate numbers, and if any matches a known felon or someone with a warrant, they would investigate. So my mother sat at the window for a full day and wrote down every plate she could see, hiding carefully the whole time. She ended the day with over 100 plates. That's how busy this guy was. We faxed, remember, the 90s, the numbers along with a letter explaining what the numbers were for and who we had spoken with to the PD. Nothing happened. After several weeks they called back and were told there were no matches of any kind. After another week of the problem simply getting worse, my father decides to take matters into his own hands. One night with no moon, he sneaks into the driveway and throws roofing nails he had bought the previous day all over into their area. Hundreds of them. We watched for weeks as seemingly every tweaker in town would stop and almost immediately have to fix flats. Evidently, either business dwindled so much, or the renter figured out someone was messing with them both, that they finally moved. The landlord spent over 2 weeks of having cleaning crews and the like over, throwing out huge mounds of garbage, and repair crews to fix the damage that I later found out was caused by the renter. It seems they trashed and stripped the place before disappearing some night without us noticing. The moral here? Not really one exactly, except for maybe the landlord. Be more selective who you let live in your house maybe? Edit. I should clarify that driveway was dirt, gravel, and tufts of grass, so these nails were not obvious and difficult to see, let alone pick up. My father specifically bought brown-colored ones. The next one is titled, Years in the Making, Satisfying End to Entitled Coworker. Background. I, male 30, have been working at a private equity fund for 7 years now. When I first started, a member of the team had been a long-time accountant, female 54. No one really questioned why they were there doing junior work. As I started doing more and more, I realized that this person never trained or went to school for accounting. Not that you need to for the basics, but it became glaringly clear whenever she was asked to put anything together. Fast forward a 5 years and I have been promoted a couple times. She was now reporting to me. It was clear from day one she was resentful. Previous person in this role didn't care to give her too much work or correct her bad behavior, etc. In my previous role I helped her, often did a lot of rework to just call it a day and head home. This person was in her current role because she went to high school with partner A, male 55. It didn't become clear to me the extent to which she felt untouchable and privileged. Over the first year as her manager, there were tens of dozens of minor incidents ranging from talking back, ignoring requests, leaving early to take care of family errands, tons of mistakes, items purposefully left undone, etc. I wrote her a negative review, but HR told me to change it as soon as possible because partner A would be livid if he heard someone gave her a bad review. She once took literally 3 personal calls after I asked to do something, then left to grab a snack and passed by my office. It became clear to me that all the previous people in my role just let it be and ignored her. She was a paperweight who occasionally was given an easy task. Need to add that this woman was a personality sponge and office gossip. Poisoned the well with nearly everyone at the firm. He's mean. He once asked me to stay late, but I had my children waiting at home starving. He's setting me up to fail. I've been here 25 years and never had a problem until he was promoted. He's a tyrant. Incident. Towards the end of the year, we were swamped and the whole team was completely crushed with other deliverables. We asked her to do something she has updated multiple times for us. Usually this small task she can handle, but she royally ducked it up. It results in the wrong amount being sent to the limited partners of the funds. It wasn't caught during review, my duck up, but I later find out she purposely sabotaged the work prior to it being sent. So the new fake numbers fed into the schedule, causing the issue. I take a lot of heat, but at the end of the day the buck stops with me. When I find out, I lose my crap. I don't curse, but I am loud. I tell her I am going to HR with this. I was busy so couldn't until end of day, but before I could she went to HR and partner A and said I was setting her up. I don't help her, she's sobbing in broad office that she's so sorry, she's too stupid, she's worthless, etc. I can tell everyone is looking at me like, wow, this young guy made a grown woman cry. Not good. HR does nothing, partner A tears me a new one. I threaten to leave because she's getting away with lying. I have my direct manager and 2 co-workers back me up. Partner B, who I've done good work for, gets involved and convinces HR and partner A something needs to be done. So she gets put on a performance review plan. I'm to CC HR in my emails to her, requests, etc. During the second review another manager will also add his 2 cents. It's untenable, but I stay. Okay, so now for the revenge. Revenge. I'm obviously enraged by this, but whatever, I can't do anything about it. I ignore her for a month, barely give her any work. She's elated. Laughing extra loud. Walks past me but near her friends from other departments and says things like, I can breathe in relief now that my torment is over and out in the open. I'm so lucky that this firm has my back. That last comment triggered into not giving a duck anymore what anyone thought. Worst case, I'd find another job. I go to HR and have my coworker come with me. I tell HR here's a list of all the tasks someone in this role should be able to do. She has this title and should be able to do them with no issues. I am going to give her tasks and document in detail everything she does wrong. I will not explain tasks and instead have coworker explain, so as to completely remove that as an excuse. I don't purposely go out of my way to give her hard work, but I don't avoid it. Now that HR and B got involved, she has to try. She still gives attitude when not on an email thread, still spends an hour or 2 at reception, still leaves early, but I begin to document all the rework, late assignments, etc. During the mid-year review I give all my documents to HR along with my scathing review, attach my coworker's opinion. This time I CC partner B to make sure it doesn't die with HR, and plus he requested it. All hell breaks loose in the sense that she started the theatrics again. She isn't fired, but B brings it up to the other partners and A is less forceful in his defense. Fast forward 4 more months and we're only a month away from final review. She's clearly stressed, but she continues to double down when she can. Trying to sabotage files. One time she went as far as to bring something up that she thought was an error to my boss. An easy explanation away and I brought her down a peg in front of everyone. She's was bucking mad, poisoning the well with everyone, but duck it, it got into my head that no one unqualified deserves a job paying $120K salary. Partner A decides to take position elsewhere, fewer hours and small PE shop. Now she feels like a fish out of water. She begins crying to everyone who can hear. I flat out say BS to any coworker that gives me a sob story about how she's the main breadwinner in her family. 3 kids, etc. This part one feel bad about, but I give her a task that feeds into 3 other teams' workflows, knowing full well she'd duck it up. I time it for when I'm out of office. One team catches it, the other doesn't, and it causes the delay in an investment close. MDs are upset. I submit all my docs and we were about to proceed with firing her when COVID started. She was at the firm day 1, so many people love her. She's given one more shot, but with another team in the department, no one wanted her. It was like Russian roulette. Fast forward, the new team she's on, now that the threat of A is gone, doesn't hold back. Another major duck up mid-COVID around July and she was out on her butt. She threatened to sue on her way out. They didn't give her severance because of it. She deleted files, tried taking stuff during her final week of transition and had to be escorted out by security. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I think back to the number of times I would ask for something simple and she would leave the message on read and walk away or go home. Her attitude of "you can't touch me." Her smug smile as she made comments and then when confronted would say, "Well, that wasn't my intent and I can't control how you perceive things." Her life came crashing down in December. I casually checked her house on Zillow. She had to list it for sale. I'm guessing she may be underwater on her mortgage by the amount she initially listed for and the fact she cut the price several times. She also happened to have a ton of debt, so with her being out of a job, the house of cards fell. I'm guessing they're selling and hoping to live off the equity for a while. Maybe if she wasn't awful and tried half-heartedly she wouldn't be in this situation. So many people are unqualified, but they at least try. You can't expect to stay in a job just because you have been there for 27 years. I do feel guilty for the kids, because I could have just ignored her like everyone else. Granted, she was taking the space of someone who would help the team better, but I still feel like in a hole sometimes. She sure as duck will not find a job anywhere near her old salary. The last one is titled, "Got Back at My Middle School Sexual Harasser." So pretty much in 8th grade, me and a few of my fellow girl classmates were sexually harassed by this dude. We will call him A. It started with him flirting and touching other girls, pinching their sides, pulling their hair, popping their bra straps through their shirt, etc. And the girls would laugh and giggle awkwardly and tell him to stop. One day, when the teacher stepped out of class to discipline another student, I saw him pull one of the girls out of her chair, push her to the ground and start dry humping her. After class, I found the girl crying in the bathroom. She was so scared. I ended up telling the teacher, who took the girl aside and talked to her, but the girl denied it out of fear and nothing ever happened from that. A few weeks later, the teacher had to step out of the class again. This time, A came up to me while I was sitting in my chair. I braced for his attempt to pull me out of the chair, but no. Instead, he straight up rubbed his pant-covered hard penis in my face and put his hand on the back of my head and started shoving. I was horrified and so embarrassed. His friend was at the door watching for the teacher. None of my classmates did anything, besides his few friends who laughed and made gagging sounds. I was crying when he was done, and cried the whole time on the bus ride home. My mum saw me when I got home and asked me what happened. After some pushing from her, I spilled it out. She was livid and put me in the car and brought me right back to the school. She went straight for my teacher's room, told her they needed to talk, and they hunted the halls for the principal. My mum had me tell them both what happened. I ended up getting a 2-week suspension and got kicked off the football team for the season. Now here's the real revenge. Azza and I were still in the same school system. We ended up going to the same high school for a period of time, until I moved, and ended up having the same classes. He absolutely hated me for getting him kicked off the football team, and would always give me a death stare or would murmur stuff like "ducking witch" whenever he got close to me. Whatever. He never touched me again, so it didn't bother me that much. Well, as I said, I ended up moving, about 12 hours away. I kept in touch with a lot of my friends and other people from that school via social media and online outlets. By the time I graduated, I had a real glow up. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I looked a lot different than I did when I was a freshman, and I consider myself much more attractive than I was then. I had my braces removed, and my acne had cleared up. I had fully filled out into my womanly body, all that jazz. Because I kept in touch with people from my old school, I guess I ended up being a follow suggestion to her on Instagram, because he ended up sending me a request. I laughed it off and let him follow me and followed him back just so I could see what he was up to. This was when you could see what someone you followed liked and commented on, and he was still making a ton of sexual advances on multiple girls. After a while, I realized that he didn't recognize me. He would comment stuff on my pictures about how hot I was and whatnot, and he ended up private messaging me. I let it go on for a bit, and even let him start flirting with me and sending me pictures of himself. I never asked for it, but I will say that I didn't discourage it. Example, he would send me a shirtless picture and I'd reply with cute. But we mostly talked about our personal interests and what we wanted to do with our lives since we were both out of high school. Eventually, he started really chasing me. He would message me every morning and multiple times throughout the day, and would send me a lot of hot pictures of himself, etc. All this time he was still commenting on multiple other girls' pictures, and some of them were more explicit and sexual comments than others. Eventually, he ended up sending me an unsolicited D-pic and asked for a nude in return. It was then and there that I knew the time had come. I announced who I was, and he was like, "Yeah, I know your name, it's on your profile." I replied with something along the lines of, "From middle school." Think back. His next response was, "Insert my full name? The one who got me kicked off the football team?" I replied with yes. He then started talking about how hot I was and how different I looked, etc. I replied with something similar to, "Thanks for the compliments, but I don't think you realize that I actually skipped a few grades and I'm still underage. You just asked me to send you child porn. I'm calling the police." He blocked me, but I had already taken screenshots of the messages. I did end up talking to the police, and they connected me with the local police where he lived. It turns out that he had a few different sexual harassment notes against him, but none with proof or standing legal ground. When he got arrested and they looked through his phone and laptop, they found out that he was blackmailing and extorting multiple different girls, including an ex he was holding revenge porn over. He ended up going down, not just because he was a piece of garbage who liked to prey on girls, but also because he made the mistake of not recognizing the one girl who ever stood up against him and won. Thanks for listening.